Most mornings, my spouse Henry and I start our day with an embodied practice and seated meditation on our open front porch, because we like to receive the nourishment of the early daylight for our eyes and our skin. So we live on a fairly quiet street, and we delight in the accompaniment of birdsong as we do our practice. And we love this outdoor place and time of beginning each day. However, in September, we've had a huge challenge to our peaceful practice. There's been a cacophony of loud sounds as an old house just 3 doors down from us is being demolished. So imagine the sound of glass, wood, metal being dumped into these massive metal containers, like really close to us. And then all these noisy machines and earth diggers and workers calling out to each other. It's very erratic and ongoing. And then these huge trucks come right past our sacred space where we're meditating, carrying pieces of the house right past our front lawn where we are. So there's been tons of practice of letting go, a lot of work. And furthermore, we have learned that the next stage is going to be the construction of a sixplex on our corner. So we anticipate this noise and cacophony of noise will continue. In the past, this would have frustrated me to the nth degree. I would have been silently swearing at the workers and tensing up my body, resisting the interference in my meditation time. I would have hit despair, feeling that I was being sabotaged. And I know my body would have tensed up in resistance. What's interesting to me is now observing my response. I find myself giggling at the situation, this juxtaposition. The irony of it is hilarious to me. So I still hear the birds singing right near us. They hear the chaos and they sing on, continuing to delight in the beauty of the flowers, the trees, the warmth of the sun, the movement of the clouds, the texture of the air, the sensations of moisture or dryness. They continue to rejoice in this beautiful earth. So I've decided I'm going to join in their modeling and accept this with the wisdom of the birds. Instead of resisting all the noise and disruption and getting stressed out, we can consciously choose, the birds and us, to accept what is happening. We can't change the fact that this elderly man who lived in that house has passed, and his children sold the house, and they sold it to developers who want to provide 6 units of housing for several people in this city of need for housing, replacing one man who was living there with his dog. So we need to accept that. I've noticed that in accepting this outside cacophony, that it may continue for some time, that I'm able to focus on my inner deep peace regardless. In seeing that this is true for me, I now celebrate how far I have come on my spiritual journey, and it has been a journey into peace. I even feel a wee bit of gratitude for this going on, showing me this, giving me the inner reflection of where I have gone. But I have to say, ask me in 2 or 3 months how I'm doing with it. So there have certainly been many times in my life where events or interactions would have led me to tense up my body and my mind, and my emotions would be reactive. Many times. Stress has built up in me and accumulated in my body. I have blamed events outside of me for ruining my day and ruining my plans. And I've even felt like a victim with much resistance. A huge point of the case in point of this, where I went deeply into reactive stress, was in September 2018. So 7 years almost to the day here. Over a period of 6 years, I journeyed deeply into learning that peace comes only through crossing that threshold of acceptance. It began when one of my brothers met with me on that same front porch with some big news to tell me. He had learned accidentally that our mother had written a new last will. She had intended to keep this new will secret from the entire family, except for our youngest brother. Because her new will, in contrast to the earlier will of equal distribution amongst her descendants, this early will gives 97% of her estate, which is her condo, to this one youngest brother. We were shocked by this and deeply hurt. There was absolutely no conversation about this. No discussion. When I asked my mom to explain to me what she had done and what that was about, her answer was, I want to stay living in my condo and not go into an old folks' home. Doug, the youngest brother, will live with me. Then she hung up the phone. That was the only conversation we ever had about this. So this experience plummeted me into my core wound of being raised by non-available, narcissistic parents. I had learned as a child and all my life to cope primarily by leaning into my palpable experience of the presence of divine love. The divine love that was beyond the wounds of my parents and beyond my family of origin. This overt blow of once again being disowned, as my mother frequently called her actions towards me, now included our son and our daughter. So as I accepted the long repressed emotional path of my wounded child, I sobbed. It came right up in my face. Here it is again, once more, the big finality of being abandoned, being emotionally not present to. As I sobbed, I entered into it deeply. I actually went into fetal position on the floor for hours, feeling, breathing, and allowing all those feelings to rise up and come through me from all the years of this life. I didn't pretend that the unjust, unkind, narcissistic behavior didn't happen. It happened. I dove in deeply and felt all the way through, staying with it, until the old trauma and this new trauma were seen and heard by my present big self. I chose to deeply love myself out of this lifelong sense of not being seen or loved by my mom. I accepted my feelings, and I allowed the charge of the resistance to dissolve. I allowed myself to let go and release. And I chose to accept that I am loved. I am made of infinite love, even though my mother rarely showed such love. I couldn't talk with my mom for more than a year. She refused. Shortly after this, Mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. It was no longer possible to have a conversation about her will. She had no capacity. Then there were a series of events of her deteriorating. She had falls, 2 falls, fractured hip, depression, moved into a wheelchair, was wheelchair bound, rehab. The Alzheimer's worsened. My brother then moved her into the old folks' home that she had dreaded. She faded away week by week in her wheelchair, soon not able to feed herself solids. And eventually she didn't know me or my family. I shed many tears on my path to accept that this was happening to my own mother. Another layer of grief. And she just deteriorated more and more physically until her brain could no longer support her breathing. So in this past March, she passed away, unable to breathe. By the time she had died, I had accepted that she had made choices that I didn't like. And I had accepted the pain of witnessing this woman who was my mother disappearing over time, over months, over years. I recall the words of Master Teacher Ram Dass. He said, "The resistance to the unpleasant situation is the root of suffering." So I consciously made the choice to release my resistance. And the painful charge that the resistance caused. And I noticed that the stress levels in my body gradually lessened. It was gradual. Acceptance of the tough stuff feels like long, slow labor. We wrestle. We negotiate. We claw our way towards surrender, inch by inch. It's work. I unwaveringly chose this path of releasing resistance and growing my level of acceptance because I knew it was my path. I knew it was vital to my spirit. One major breakthrough moment for me was in a moment of deep meditation where I asked to see her soul. And what I was shown was that she had impeccably served me on the journey that my soul required, in the exact way that it required. I learned that through her non-availability, or not being the source of love for me, that I learned to not ever look to other people to be my source. That's a massive gift. I knew that in every cell of my body. Even in childhood, I realized, looking back, I had learned to lean on the source of infinite love. What an amazing gift. So I was then at peace with her passing. Our soul contract was complete. And now I was fully able to support her confused and lost spirit. I was happy to lovingly respond to her spirit calling me to help her soul move into the afterlife. And I was able to do that with such deep peace, deep peace. And yet, there was still the matter of the will. I explored legal routes to challenge the will on behalf of my family. I didn't pretend that Mom had made good choices. I faced and navigated many minefields and emotions and opinions of my family around all of this. Even though we had a very good legal chance of reverting to the earlier will, I knew that going into a legal challenge would be exhausting and time-consuming. I did not want to live my life out of resistance. I had learned that resisting external situations had created such stress in my body and in my human self. And I knew the truth that what we resist persists. I came to a clear conclusion that peace was more important to me than winning. I came around to realize that peace was more important than my children receiving the inheritance money that they could have really used. And I made the conscious choice for the energy of acceptance and to release the energy of resistance. I came around to fully accepting the new will that my mom had written. It was a big journey. It was 6 years. It wasn't quick. It was long, slow labor. But we have great power and freedom to choose how to respond to what happens around us. My dear friend, Dr. Nancy Reeves, is a clinical psychologist, and she specializes in loss and grief. And her model of grieving that she's well known for is that as we gradually accept the loss, whatever loss it is, we start to have more life energy again and stop being just in survival mode, which we are at the beginning. And then her model shares that as we come into complete acceptance, we suddenly have all kinds of energy and vitality and life force returning to us. Life force energy. And I would call that peace. Waiting for acceptance or forgiveness to arrive will not get us to peace. When we place our attention on choosing to accept what is happening, we go on a journey of deep healing. As we allow this energy of acceptance to lead us, gradually the energy of peace flows more and more into our lives. It truly is a journey. My long journey of choosing to accept my mom's behavior and actions, and then accepting her mental decline, then accepting her death, and then finally accepting her last will, actually built the muscle of acceptance in me. It led me right to this moment where I'm able to see that and accept and giggle at the cacophony of demolition happening right in my sacred meditation space. But without that muscle building, I would have been in a different place. This is not resignation, and it's not apathy. Acceptance is as a lived reality, is a full-bodied choice to respond to what is. When our life force energy is no longer expended in repressing and resisting, it's freed up and we can access the abundant life force with which to live, to create, and to love. I mentioned at the start of our meditation, but I'll repeat it again, that Dr. David Hawkins, who has studied different states of consciousness in people, he says that when one person holds the vibration of unconditional and love and peace, which he says is 500 hertz, when one person holds that, it counterbalances the despair and the fear of 750,000 people. It's that powerful. Talk about ripples, hey? I call that a holy wow when I hear things like that. By choosing acceptance and holding that frequency of peace, we're influencing human consciousness in a quantum way. When we hold this frequency in ourselves, as we're hearing about the trauma and wars and tragedies in the world, we are actually making a momentous contribution to humanity and to the earth. It's that powerful. So how wonderful it is to be able to choose acceptance and to choose to refuse resistance. Then we actually do become aware of the peace that is in us, and let it fill our awareness with its beautiful light today and every day, radiating around us and into the world beyond us. And so it is.